All right, today we're going to get inside the head of one of history's greatest swordsmen, Miyamoto Musashi. But he was way more than just a legendary duelist. He was a philosopher who, at the very end of his life, went into a cave to do something almost nobody had done before, to actually write down the unwritten code of his strategy. So this is the big question, isn't it? This is the central challenge Musashi was up against, and it's fascinating to think about. How do you take something that lives in your body, pure instinct, timing, movement, and somehow translate that into something as flat as words on a page? How do you even begin to write about the unwritable? You see, for generations, this kind of knowledge wasn't passed down through books. It was transmitted physically. It was a direct download of experience from one person to another, master to student. Writing things down was seen as, well, almost not good enough to capture the real spirit of the art. This quote just hits the nail on the head. I mean, think about it. Trying to describe a perfect sword strike in words, it's like trying to explain the color blue to someone who's never been able to see. You can try, but you'll never capture the real thing. And it's that attempt to bridge the gap between action and text that makes what Musashi did so incredible. Now, to really get why he felt he had to write all this down, we have to understand the world he was living in, because it was a time of huge change in Japan, and Musashi's life was basically a bridge between two completely different eras. So just look at this timeline for a second. He's born in 1584 into a Japan that is just non-stop war. By the time he's 16, in the year 1600, he's already a veteran of a major battle. But then, just 3 years later, everything changes. The wars end, and suddenly, this master warrior has no wars to fight. So what does he do? He's forced to turn all that skill, all that focus, inward. And that shift is absolutely key. When the battlefield outside disappeared, the battlefield inside took its place. Swordsmanship went from being a tool just for survival, for killing, to becoming a way of life. It became a path towards self-perfection. So it's this whole new way of thinking that leads Musashi to write his most famous work, the Rin No Sho, which we all know as the Book of Five Rings. This was his big shot at putting down a universal philosophy on paper. At the very core of his philosophy is this idea of hyoho, or strategy. But for Musashi, this wasn't just about fighting, not at all. He believed that the principles that make a master swordsman are the exact same principles that make a master carpenter, a great leader, or a brilliant artist. Strategy was a universal key to mastering pretty much anything. He laid out his philosophy in these 5 scrolls, each one named for an element. You've got earth, which is all about the basics, the groundwork. Then water, which represents flexibility. Fire, that's the intensity of combat. Wind is about knowing other people's strategies, so you can know your own better. And then, finally, you have heaven. Okay, so the scroll of heaven is probably the most profound of them all. For Musashi, emptiness isn't a void. It's not nothingness. Think of it more like a state of pure potential. It's having a mind that's so clear of distractions that true, spontaneous, perfect action can just happen. It's this amazing paradox of knowing everything and nothing all at the same time. To really explain what he means by intention, he makes this incredible distinction. A hit, that's just an accident, a lucky shot. But a strike is deliberate. It flows from a clear mind, a focused will. That awareness, that's the real mark of a master. As he got closer to the end of his life, Musashi distilled his whole philosophy down even further into this stark, personal code for living that builds on everything he'd written before. He called it the Dokodo, which translates to the way of walking alone. And get this, he wrote it just a week before he died. These 21 precepts are the absolute final, crystallized thoughts of a man who dedicated his entire life to the way. And the precepts are, well, they're brutally direct. There's zero room for confusion. He tells you not to regret things, not to be jealous, not even to be guided by romantic love. And you have to think, for a man who lived his life as a ronin, a masterless samurai, who literally outlived the age of war he was born for, attachments were just liabilities. This is a path of radical self-reliance. And look at these. Do not shun death. I mean, he faced it constantly. Respect the gods without counting on their help. That is the ultimate statement of self-sufficiency. You have only your training and your honor. This isn't just philosophy. It's a survival manual written by a man who actually survived, completely on his own. So, why does a 17th century samurai's philosophy still hit so hard today? Why are people in boardrooms and art studios and gyms all over the world still reading his work? Well, it's because of insights like this one. Musashi understood that mastery isn't some finish line you cross. It's a lifelong process. 1,000 days to learn something, and then 10,000 more just to polish it. That's the kind of commitment we're talking about. And here's the real takeaway for us. Just replace the word sword with anything. Your job, your art, your own personal growth. The principles are universal. It's all about discipline, focus, and clearing your mind so you can see things as they really are. In the end, this was his ultimate advice. Whatever your path is, whatever your way of strategy happens to be, you commit to it fully, never stray. This was the last precept of the Dokudo and the closing thought of his entire life's work. And so that leaves us with this question. Musashi's way was the sword, but his principles, focus, discipline, clarity, they're universal. So what is the way of strategy in your life?